Hello, this is Robin, the PMP. Today I'm going to be going over the data representation ITTOs. Now, the data representation ITTOs are found in manage quality and control quality. A lot of times when looking at situational questions, you're going to see something that looks like this. What tool or technique should the project manager use? And then you'll probably have 4 choices. In this example, a histogram, a Pareto diagram, an Ishikawa diagram, or the control chart. Well, let's break this down. So first of all, in regards to data representation ITTOs, for managed quality, we have our affinity diagram, our cause and effect diagram, our flow charts, our histogram, the matrix diagram, and the scatter diagrams. Now, adding to this list, control charts are in control quality. That is really going to help you determine where you are in your 49 processes when you answer these types of questions. So first, let's talk about what everything is. And we'll start with the affinity diagram. An affinity diagram can organize potential causes of defects, showing areas that should be focused on the most. Your cause and effect diagram is also known as the fishbone diagram and the YY diagram, in addition to the Ishikawa diagrams. Now, those types of diagrams break down the causes of the problem statement identified into discrete branches, which is going to help and identify the main or root cause of the problem. Your flow chart show a series of steps that lead to a defect, and your histograms. Now, your histograms show a graphical representation of the numerical data. Your histogram can show the number of defects per deliverable, a ranking of the cause of the defects, the number of times each process is non-compliant, or representations of the project or product defects. Now, your matrix diagrams seeks to show the strength of the relationships among factors, causes, and objectives that exist between the rows and the columns from that matrix. Your scatter diagram is a graph that shows the relationship between the two variables. Scatter diagrams can demonstrate a relationship between any element of a process, environment, or activity on one axis and a quality defect on the other. Let's now bring in our control chart. Now, the control chart is used to determine whether or not a process is stable or has predictable performance. Now, the upper and lower specification limits are based on requirements and reflect the maximum and minimum values allowed. Your upper and lower control limits are different from specification limits. The control limits are determined using standard statistical calculations and principles to ultimately establish the natural capability outside the control limits. Now, your control charts can be used to monitor various types of output variables, and although used most frequently to track repetitive activities required for producing manufactured lots, your control chart may also be used to monitor cost and schedule variances, your volume, your frequency of scope changes, or other management results to help determine if the project management processes are out of control. So now that we've done that, let's come back to our question. In this case, We're looking at 4 possible answers, and the question is going to be a situational question. What should the project manager use? Now, the reason that I've highlighted our histogram and our Pareto diagram is because they are often confused. So let me help to shed some light on this as well. There are a number of charts that are used to evaluate and analyze quality results within a project. And these 2 charts, they're very similar and they're often confused. So let's first talk about our histogram. Now, a histogram is a type of bar chart that shows a distribution of variables. Now, the histogram represents each attribute or characteristic as a column, and the frequency of each attribute or characteristic occurring as the height of the column, where your Pareto chart is a specific type of histogram that ranks causes or issues by their overall influence, and that Pareto chart assists in prioritizing corrective actions as the issues with the greatest impact, and those issues are displayed in order. So in addition, the Pareto chart includes an arc representing the cumulative percentage of the causes. Now, your Pareto chart, it's named after Pareto's law that states that a relatively small number of causes will typically produce a large majority of problems or defects. This is commonly known as the 80-20 rule, where 80% of the problems are due to 20% of our causes. So just to summarize really quickly, that histogram, it's a bar graph. It illustrates the frequency of an event occurring using the height bar as an indicator, where your Pareto chart, it's a special type of histogram that represents the Pareto philosophy of the 80-20 rule through displaying the events by order of impact. So here again, here is another look at our Pareto chart. We can recognize it because it has that arch. It is a type of histogram, which I know can make things a little confusing. And let's think about that 80-20 rule. Now, if you haven't heard of the 80-20 rule yet, you may have heard of it perhaps outside of the PMP exam. I know it's used a lot in marketing. For instance, let's talk about real estate agents. There's a theory in real estate that 20% of the realtors get 80% of the work. I'm sure from a marketing standpoint, if we think about cereal, there's probably 20% of the cereal manufacturers that get 80% of cereal purchases. So kind of think of it that way as well. Here's your Ishikawa diagram, and this is also known as your cause and effect diagrams, your fishbone diagram, your YY diagram, and PMI says that this breaks down the causes of the problem statement identified into discrete branches, helping to identify the main or root cause of the problem. Our control chart, when you think about control charts, think about that rule of 7. When 7 consecutive data points fall on the same line of the mean, either above or below, the process is said to be out of control and in need of adjustment. All the points may be within the control limits. So again, we're talking about those 49 processes. Specifically, we're talking about 8.1. I'm lying too. We're talking about 8.2, manage quality, and 8.3, control quality. Let's take a look at those ITTOs one last time. Manage quality, our data representation, we've got our affinity diagram, our cause and effect diagram, that's the Ishikawa diagram, your flow chart, your histograms, which includes the Pareto, your matrix diagrams, and your scatter diagrams. And then when we come over to control quality, we're talking about that cause and effect diagrams, again, your Ishikawa, your control charts, your rule of 7, your histogram, which includes the Pareto, and your scatter diagrams. I think it's very important to note that control charts are being mentioned in control quality. I hope that this video was helpful. If you haven't yet taken a look at your Agile Practice Guide, it is available for you to download. If you're going through your PMP process through PMI, the Agile Guide downloads with PMBOK 6, and that starts on page 795. Again, I hope this was helpful. Please subscribe, and we will be posting more videos.